The little gods are whispering again. I can barely hear the words, but I feel they will tugging at the corner of my thoughts. I know what they want me to do. Pen and paper, I don't trust the greedy machines which plunder my mind. I'm sitting here alone at my desk. The lights are off. The wood grain is real to my touch. The metal tip bleeds ink into my fingers. On what grounds should I believe my stained skin is real, but this stained mind is full of lies? It's her fault if I've gone mad. I never should have gone looking for my sister Wendy. Maybe it's my father's fault for leaving, or my mother's fault, for crying about our family falling apart. And of course my fault too, calling Wendy crazy and driving her away. You could tell Wendy wasn't all there the moment you saw her. Imagine a 20-year-old Helena Bonham Carter, blind drunk, raiding a Halloween store and getting dressed in the dark. The hooks of her corset never matched up. Her hair was a bird's nest after a storm. Her shower must drench her in jewelry and mismatched trinkets, if she ever showers at all. And always her haunted eyes, hardly blinking, wide and quivering, as though stretched open by invisible hands. Do my eyes look like that now? I don't know. The little gods like the dark. I won't turn on the lights. It's the second rule. I hardly saw Wendy after she moved to college. She wasn't always like this, but she was definitely headed in that direction even before Dad left. It was a bad split too, lots of shouting, almost coming to blows between my parents. My father practically ransacked the house before he left, throwing the TV and half the furniture into the back of his pickup. Wendy was screaming at him the whole time he packed, but Dad wouldn't say a word to her. He wouldn't even look at her. Her face smeared with mascara, flushed beet red, stomping and wailing and throwing things. Wendy kept getting louder and more hysterical until they weren't even words anymore. Just raw strained emotion, like her soul was being ripped from her chest. Dad drove away, and Wendy has never been the same. I wouldn't have blamed her for just being upset or depressed about the divorce. But something really snapped in her that day. Muttering to herself, kicking at walls, screaming in the night, I thought she would get better in a new environment after she left for college. Anyway, we all thought Dad was going to come back again, so nobody really intervened with Wendy. Even when she kept slipping farther away from us. I didn't like it when Wendy came back to visit. It was the way she looked at us, like studying bugs under a microscope. It was the way Wendy spoke out of the side of her mouth, always whispering to an invisible friend. She would look at us out of the corner of her eyes and giggle as she talked. Mom wouldn't interrupt her when she was talking to herself. Mom very politely turned her attention elsewhere until Wendy scrutinized us again with her bulging eyes. It was painful to see Mother's forced smile. She wouldn't let herself see what Wendy was becoming. "It's just a game," Mother said once, "and I think it's charming. I'm glad she isn't growing up too fast, now that she's out on her own." I was honestly relieved when my sister stopped coming home at all. A year went by without seeing her. Then she stopped calling. No more posts online. I knew Wendy had 2 roommates, and managed to contact one of them. That roommate had already moved out months ago, convinced that Wendy was batshit insane. I distinctly remember her describing Wendy as Satan's bitch. I would have been offended if it hadn't made me laugh. My mother couldn't take it, and I couldn't take my mother, so this afternoon found me driving a lonely road to find my sister and bring her home. Wendy and her roommates had been renting an old house that was much too big for them. They got it for a deal though, and I guess the other girls she shared it with thought they could clean it up and throw parties there. The house looked like it had been through a war though, with its sagging walls and red shingle roof caving in on the 3rd floor. Heavy iron bars and boards over the windows. There was no paint on the rough limestone walls, but a river of graffiti navigated around the dark stains. Most of the graffiti contained monster eyes embedded within the letters or design. The most prominent phrase read, "Home of the Seven Little Gods." It was spray-painted in a neon orange arc above the heavy wooden front door. It was late afternoon when I arrived. I was thankful it wasn't night. I didn't feel safe here. It's not like the neighborhood was bad, the university was only a few blocks away. I wondered if Wendy ever went to her classes anymore. As I walked to the door, I had an unnerving feeling that all those graffiti eyes were following me. I couldn't let uneasy thoughts get to me though. If Wendy really had gone mad, then it would only make things worse to reinforce her delusions. I was just going to go in, march her out the door, put her in the car, and bring her back home. She would be Mom's problem after that. I knocked on the door and waited. I looked around the old porch and stared at a garden gnome perched upon the wooden bench. The gnome was made of gray stone, and was pushing a little wheelbarrow which held a small brown cloth sack. I hopped from one foot to the other, waiting anxiously, trying to peer into the side windows. Both shuttered. No sound from inside. No lights. I knocked again and sat on the bench next to the gnome to wait. Maybe Wendy was just out. I couldn't remember what her class schedule was, if she even told us. She had nowhere else to go, right? She must show up eventually. Unless she had a boyfriend or something, but that didn't seem possible. I reached for the gnome's cloth bag and untwined the string to pass the time. I hadn't opened the bag yet before feeling something inside squirm in my hands. It felt like an eel or a snake, muscular and smooth. I hurled the closed bag down into the stone wheelbarrow. It didn't move. I peeled back a loose piece of wood from the bottom of the bench and poked at the bag. The stick pushed it around easily. It was light. It was empty. I put the stick down and reached tentatively for the bag again. I only picked up the corner, lifting it enough to feel how much lighter it was than when I lifted it the first time. The front door slammed open. Stop. Thief. I jumped bad. What the hell? Wendy. I stared at her a good 3 seconds before realizing it was my sister. She wore a bright yellow sundress and a matching wide-brimmed yellow hat tilted low over her face. Large aviator sunglasses and deep maroon lipstick made her hardly recognizable. Give it back. Her posture was so straight and rigid. She looked downright imperious, a long finger pointing accusingly at the cloth bag dangling from my fingers. What's inside? I asked. Do not steal from the little god, she shrieked. She looked so elegant for a moment that I thought she was better in the head. Staring at the ugly contortions twisting her face, I decided otherwise. I slowly nodded, feeling like I was appeasing a wild animal. I dropped the cloth bag back into the wheelbarrow and stared at the gnome. Then at the spray-painted letters above us. I read aloud, Home of the Seven Little Gods. You wouldn't understand. What do you want? Wendy didn't stop pointing at me. Her posture accusing and suspicious. Not for a good 10 seconds. It felt like she was pointing a gun at me, and wouldn't put it down until someone gave her permission. I wish she wasn't wearing sunglasses. What the hell was going on with her? I didn't mean to startle you, I said in a calm voice. Have you been here this whole time? Why haven't been answering your phone? They don't like machines. And they don't like you. Wendy grinned as she started closing the heavy door. I stuck my foot in the crack. Mom is pissed, dear sister. She wants you to come home. I am home. Wendy furrowed her brow. I am home. Her voice trailed off. Her mouth went slack a moment. Then she smiled at me. Her teeth were clean and bright, at least she wasn't on drugs. Her voice rolled as sickly sweet as her smile. It is so nice to see you, dear brother. Won't you come in and have some tea? Wendy reached for her sunglasses, but her fingers started to shake as they rested on the frame. Her hand dropped away rigidly, with a motion like a puppet whose string had been cut. I'm not going in. You're going out. I'm parked on the street, but don't see your car. Do you still have the Jeep? I got rid of it. The little gods do not like machines. If you insist, we will ask them for permission to see if I can leave. Wendy drifted out of the doorway and knelt on the porch in front of the stone gnome. She clasped her hands together, and in a pleading voice asked, "May I please visit my family, little god?" I half expected the gnome to say something. It didn't. I started to laugh, but the sound died in my throat. The cloth sack moved again. I know it was empty. It was still tied shut. But it flopped like a tongue rolling about the mouth. I bit my lip and said nothing until Wendy stood and looked earnestly back at me. Then sarcastically, "Let me guess. They said you're their prisoner. Did the gnome call you Satan's bitch?" Wendy shook her head. She tilted her face to the side, smiling coyly. Don't be crude. It was good news. The little god gave me permission to visit Mom. I sighed in relief. I hadn't realized how tight and clenched my whole body had been. I glanced uneasily at the cloth bag. Was that an air pocket, or some hidden bulk inside? It didn't matter anymore. I started for the porch steps, but stopped again when I saw Wendy wasn't following. I went back to her and took her hand, intending to drag her to the car if I had to. She planted her feet and ripped her hand away from me. Her skin was so cold, I could still feel a tingling where my hand had touched hers. What's wrong? I asked in frustration. We're leaving, right? Do you need to pack something? Yes. We will go. As soon as I get permission from the other 6 little gods. Come with me. They will want to see you before they decide if you can be trusted. I would have rather done anything than go inside that house. Even coming this far, I honestly consider driving home now and pretending I never found Wendy. I had already seen enough to guess why her roommates had fled. But for me to turn back, I would have to admit to myself there was something to fear. I understood that mental illness can be hereditary, and ever since I saw my sister slipping into the well of her own mind, I have been afraid one day it would happen to me too. The little gods weren't real. I had to believe that. I tried so damn hard to be normal. I didn't eat lunch with anyone who had a mean nickname about them. I played soccer. I wore the team jacket. I passed all my classes. No one would call me twisted, or broken, or a freak. At least not twice. I couldn't be afraid without being a freak like her. So I told myself that my heart raced from excitement as I followed her into the dark entranceway of the grand old house. I must be playing a game. Just like when we were kids, spinning fantasies of make-believe. I fumbled around the wall until I found a light switch. There was duct tape holding it down, but I forced it up anyway. Half a second of light. I flinched and recoiled from the dark mold which spoiled uneven shapes on the lower part of the walls. The blue carpet was frayed and uneven, compressed in a sluggish trail as though once bearing a massive weight. There was more spray paint on the walls inside, eyes embedded in the inscrutable artistic lettering. Wendy's hand closed over mine, and gently turned the lights back off. The little gods do not like the light. Her voice was so soft and comforting, like she was trying to calm a frightened child. How dare she think I was the one who needed to be comforted? I wish she would take those damn sunglasses off. I remained stiff and anxious until she released me. She turned gracefully to stroll down the hall. At least she didn't look as wild as her gothic high school phase. I still couldn't believe these smooth motions and measured words belonged to my sister. I tested the waters by saying, "The little gods don't like cars, and they don't like lights. There's something I have to ask you, and I hope you'll be honest with me." "Anything, dear brother." "Are the little gods Amish?" Wendy stopped dead. She turned to look at me over her shoulder. She stared at me. No hint of comprehension, no expression. Only the hard edge of her sunglasses reflecting the meager light. "Do the little gods not like jokes either?" I pressed. I couldn't bear her silence. Head cocked aside. She was listening again. But not to me. All at once she snorted and giggled pleasantly. I don't think it was for my joke. She snapped her neck away to face forward and marched through the dark living room. Slivers of afternoon light still sneak between closed curtains. The silhouette of a long leather couch in front of a massive widescreen TV. There's no way she could have afforded those things. Her roommates must have been really generous to leave them. Or they really left in a hurry. The little gods have many rules, Wendy admitted. But it is good to have rules. Thou shalt not kill. We are not born with this rule. We learn it, or we break it, and we suffer the consequences. So it is with the little gods. Their rules keep us safe from evil things. We are so lucky to have them here, or else we would never know which possible futures to avoid.